Scott, state your full name for the record.
Scott Walker Farris,
How old are you today?
41 years old.
And you know why you're here today?
Yes, sir, I do.
And would you identify your mother for the record, please? You see your mom sitting in court?
Yes, sir.
Just describe the clothing she's wearing.
She's wearing a gray jacket with a black shirt, glasses on her head, pearl necklace.
What I want to do is I want to go back and kind of introduce you to the jury. So let's go back and I want to talk about your childhood. If I asked you where are you from, what's your answer?
I was born in Muscle Shoals, Florence, Alabama was the hospital. Lived there short period of time, and then we moved to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where my dad went to law school.
Okay. Let me ask you about that. We're going to break it down and go through it. How old were you? What were your memories? What age do you remember law school with your dad?
I was very little. I remember going to the law school. I remember when my dad graduated and seeing him jump over like a big mud puddle in his cap and gown. There's very, very little I remember of actually being in Tuscaloosa because I was so young.
But how old again were you when you were there?
Probably 5-ish, around in there.
And how old was your brother Chris?
Well, he's 3 years older than me, so he would have been around 8, 9 years old.
Do you remember doing anything with your dad at law school? Did y'all play together or do anything when you were there?
Don't remember any. I remember going fishing with him. There was either a pond or a lake or river close by in the townhome that we lived in.
Do you have a memory of your when your dad was in law school, of him studying or coming back and studying or anything like that? Or what are the memories that you have of your dad while he was in law school?
I don't really remember any of that. I remember more in Birmingham when I believe he was he taught law school or helped out with a law professor, and helping him grade tests. I do remember that.
How'd you do that?
Well, back then it was like, when I was in high school, when you took, SATs or anything, it was fill in the bubbles, and, he would give me a kind of a cardboard cutout and I'd lay it over, and anything that didn't have a pencil mark, I'd just take a highlighter and hit it. So that was my way of helping him out.
He was grading tests?
Oh yeah, he was incredibly book smart.
How old were you when you were helping your dad do this?
We were living in Birmingham, so I was in elementary school, so I don't remember my exact age, but definitely between 5 and 10 years old, roughly.
And what were age of your siblings at this time when you were in Alabama? Or it was you and Chris?
All 4 of us would have been born, well, except for, I believe Amanda was born in Tuscaloosa, and Emily. No, sorry, Amanda was born in Birmingham, Emily was born in Tuscaloosa, I think. Emily is 5 years behind me, and then Amanda is 18 months roughly behind Emily.
All right, so let's go through the kids. Who's the oldest in the family?
Chris is.
And how much older is he than you?
5 years.
And
No, sorry, 3 years.
3 years? And then it's you? And then who's after you, below you?
Emily.
Okay, and what's the age difference between you and Emily?
About a 5-year difference.
And then Amanda's the youngest?
Yes, sir.
Who you were the closest with? Were you closer to your sisters or to your brother, or who did you line up with?
I was more protective of, Emily was closer to me, so I was protective of her, but...
How about Chris? Was he closer to one of the sisters?
Chris was kind of more of on Amanda. I was Emily. Chris and I did a lot of things together as kids. We were very involved in baseball.
Sports?
Yes.
Did you play anything else besides baseball?
At the time, no.
What kind of things did you do for hobbies and things when you were young?
A lot of fishing.
And how about your sisters? What type of things would they do?
Played with Barbies.
As you've gone through this entire event, the murder of your father, is there a division among the kids now?
Chris, Emily, and I, we're all together. Amanda had turned on us.
Did things get stressful, tense after the death of your father?
Oh yes, I mean, our whole world got wrecked.
Do you talk to your sister Amanda much anymore?
No, I do not.
How about your other siblings?
Yes, I talk to them at a minimum once a week, roughly.
Growing up, how close were you? How close were the four to each other?
I mean, as we got older, we all kind of started doing our own things. Chris, he was older than me, so, with him being in high school and all, he's not going to hang out, as much with me. He's a little brother. He's got his own friends and all. And, Emily and I mean, we really didn't go do things together. It was kind of a normal childhood, just brother and sister type deal.
When it comes to your dad, as you're growing up through high school, did he work a lot?
Yes, he did.
Would you describe your father as was he a workaholic?
Yes, I would.
Did he love his work?
He absolutely did.
If you could describe whether or not he was an introverted or extroverted person, what was he like?
What do you mean?
Was he quiet, kind of isolated to himself, or was he the life of the party and would hang out with people?
So if there was something going on, if we all went out to dinner and stuff, he definitely sparked up conversations with everybody, crack jokes and everything like that. But he didn't go out all the time. I mean, if there was only going to be two places he was going to be at, home or the office working. But whenever we went out, and like when we used to go on dove hunting trips, a dove shoot and all, he would get around and talk with people and have a good time.
Do you like to hunt?
Yes, sir, I do.
What type of things do you hunt?
Pretty much anything I can. But here in the state of Georgia, I mainly do deer hunting and dove hunting.
What type of hunting did your dad like to do?
Bird hunting.
Do you do a lot?
A lot of bird hunting, yes.
And what kind of guns would you use when you do bird hunting?
Shotguns.
Do you have a particular gun that he would like to use or anything, or y'all would use?
I mean, he's had several shotguns. He started out with 12 gauge shotgun, and then he got a over and under silver pigeon. That's when he started getting more into quail hunting with clients. But he just mainly always had shotguns.
Do you like to play golf?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did your dad like to play golf?
He did, but he didn't play as much as, say, I would.
And who would you play golf with? Who was the people that you usually would go out with?
I've gone out a couple times with my brother, but mainly my friends Philip, Ted, and Justin.
What kind of education background do you have?
Graduated high school.
Did you get any training after that?
Not besides military, no.
Yeah, we'll get into the military, but outside of that, no college degrees or anything?
No, sir.
What kind of skills, though? You're very good at certain things, I think. What things are you good at?
Mechanical. I've always been working with my hands. Fixing things, repairing mowers, even washing machines and stuff like that. I've always been pretty good at diagnosing stuff and repairing it.
Are you more of a reader, or do you do something like hands-on?
More hands-on.
And what type of work are you doing now? You don't have to give us the name of your business or anything, but what type of work do you do now?
I'm a manufacturer technician.
Okay, what's that mean?
The company we work for, we package, we mix ingredients and package workout supplements like pre-workouts, protein shakes. I take care of all the equipment like conveyors, massive blenders, machines basically that puts the powder into bottles and then puts labels on them and so forth.
Who has the highest education among the kids?
That would be Emily.
And do you know what she has?
She has a degree from Alabama, and I don't really remember what her specific degree is, but I know she's like in human resources now, I think.
Smart?
Yes.
Now I don't want to pitch your father's love against anybody, but how did your dad feel about Emily?
Oh, he loved her to death.
Do you love all your kids?
Yes, he did.
Did y'all at times disagree?
Between who?
Your dad and the kids? Y'all ever have disagreements with your mom and dad?
Oh yeah, everybody does.
Would you consider the relationship that you and your kids had before all this, was it pretty normal to you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I felt like I had a pretty decent, happy child life. You know, we try to do as much things as possible. We went to the beach every year. I mean, we never got to go to Disney World or anything like that, but we had our family vacations, and, you know, we always got together for birthdays and Christmas and holidays.
Would your dad give you anything you wanted?
No.
Would he limit what you could get money-wise or make you account for it? What kind of car did you have
Which time?
as a teenager?
As a teenager, I had my first vehicle was an old 91 Silverado, regular cab, no extended cab, nothing.
Would he give you whatever car you wanted?
So he bought my first vehicle and he gave me a price limit. And I believe it had to be $10,000 or less.
How about with your brothers and sisters? Was he the same way?
Chris was, yes. He was pretty much the same way. They gave a price limit. Emily, he kind of flexed more on. And then Amanda, she got a brand new one.
So as it went down, it got more generous.
Yeah.
Now, when you were in Alabama, do you remember moving from there to Georgia?
Yes, sir, I do.
How old were you when that happened?
Well, I just completed elementary school and I was going to be starting middle school here.
So is that 7th grade, or what grade is that? 8th grade?
6th grade, I would have
Sixth grade.
started here.
How did you feel about coming to the Atlanta, Georgia area?
I wasn't happy. I had friends.
Do you remember the whole move as a family?
Yes, I do.
And where did y'all end up moving to? What was the first house in Alpharetta is what I refer to it as, but where was the first house?
At Hampton Hall neighborhood.
Describe this home. What was it like?
To me, I thought it was, you know, the biggest house I've ever seen. I mean, growing up, we either lived in a townhouse or an apartment. Our first big house was in Birmingham. I mean, thinking back now, it's, you know, probably no bigger than the house I live in now. But when we moved there, I thought this was, you know, very nice house, very large.
What stands out about the house for you? What do you remember?
That I finally got my own bedroom. So I shared a bedroom with Chris up until we moved to Atlanta.
Financially, your father, was he doing better as he came from Alabama to Georgia?
Yes,
When y'all started out, he was in law school and all that. He was not making as much money as he eventually made.
I assume so, yeah. I mean, back then I really didn't look at, you know, how much money my dad was bringing in.
Did things get bigger, though, and more expensive, or I guess better things in some ways? Was the house a nice house, your first house in Alpharetta?
Yes, it was. I mean, I noticed my dad liked to do projects, so we were able to do a lot more projects. We did projects at the old house, too.
What do you
in
mean by
Birmingham.
projects? What would he like to do?
Tear down a deck and build a new one. I remember doing that in the house in Birmingham, and building a tree house in Birmingham. And when we moved to Atlanta, there was a lot of projects. I mean, backyard, any yard work, just improving the house.
Two-story house, the first house?
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 stories if you count the basement. So you have the basement, the main floor, and then the top floor.
How about the backyard? How big is the backyard?
Where you actually used, it wasn't, I mean, if I had my back against the wall of the house, the fence would have been at the wall at the back of the courtroom. But the property extended past that, but that was woods.
Or some woods and stuff like that?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to talk later on about, but at some point, did your dad set the woods on fire there?
Yes, I do remember that.
I want to go into now and talk about, as you got older out of high school, At some point, I guess, did you have several jobs or before you went to the military, or what were you doing before you went to the military? And what age did you go to the military?
Well, in high school, I was on work program, so I got to get out of school right after lunch. I worked for Jiffy Lube. I was taking automotive in high school. Started working there. Once after I graduated high school, I moved up to working for other mechanic shops like Tires Plus and American Service Station. Did that for quite a while, and then I just got kind of burned out on turning wrenches all the time, and I got into selling cars.
And what age are we talking about here now?
Well, I've already graduated high school, so, between the ages of 18 to all the way up until I joined the Army, which is I was around 23, 24 years old.
And all this time, where were you living?
At my parents' house. I moved out for a while, lived with some friends, and made bad decisions and, partying too much and all, and wound up moving back home. And then that's when I started getting into selling cars.
So you were in your 20s drinking, partying a little bit?
Yeah, I was being your typical.
Sure. And then at some point you decided to go into the military?
Yes, sir.
And which branch did you go into?
I went into the Army.
And when you went into the Army, do you remember how old you were and what was going on at that time?
So when I joined, I started joining around 2007. It took me a little while to actually join because I had to lose some weight to be able to get in. But I remember, after I graduated basic, I turned 25 years old. So.
Where'd you get? You were in the Army, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Where'd you go to basic at?
Fort Benning.
And what do you remember about that experience?
Most challenging thing I've ever put myself through.
Are you proud that you did that?
Yes, sir.
And what did you do in the Army?
Infantry.
And what does that mean? Tell us, if we don't know what that means, what does that mean?
If anybody's ever joined the military, especially the Army, we're called 11 Bang Bang, bullet catchers.
All right, say that one more time for me.
We're called 11 Bang Bangs, bullet catchers.
Okay.
I fought on the front line.
And at some point, did you have to be deployed and go overseas?
Yes, sir. I went to Iraq.
And I'm not going to ask you too much about it, but you may ask some questions. But what I want to know is, what year was that you went over?
I went in 2009. I want to say it was April.
How was your relationship with your mother, the defendant, at this time?
Pretty much, normal to me. We got in arguments and, got in arguments, had our good days, had our bad days.
Do you describe it as a typical relationship with your mother?
Yeah, nothing really stood out of the normal. The only thing, I definitely remember the day that I told my parents I was joining the Army. When I told her, she just flat out said, "You can't do it." And then when I told my dad, he was like, "You need to become a sniper."
That's what your dad said?
That's what my dad said.
Was he proud of you?
Oh, yes. He was a history buff, and biggest history he liked was war history. So I do remember him telling me that he planned on joining the Air Force prior to my brother becoming pregnant with my brother.
What do you want to do in the Air Force?
That I don't remember.
But it was the Air Force?
Yes, sir. My grandfather, his dad, was in the Air Force.
Now, when you had to fly, I guess, and go overseas, you probably went to an airport or something like that. Did your mom come see you off?
Yes, she did.
And did your dad?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember that moment?
Yes, sir.
And how was she with you at that time? Was she proud of you when she sent you off?
Oh, yes.
What were her emotions like then when you were going off?
She was crying. She acted like a mother would be.
How about your dad?
That was the second time I've ever seen my dad cry.
There's some tissue back there, Scott, if you need it.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. There's some tissue right behind you there if you need some.
All right. But yeah, I remember it very well. They both dropped me off at the Atlanta airport. I left the Atlanta airport and went back out to Fort Bliss, El Paso, Texas,
What year was that you went over?
2009.
And how long were you overseas?
Just shy of the 1 year mark. I believe it was 10 and a half months I was over there.
Did you see some hard things while you were there?
Yes, sir.
When you came back home, did you get out of the military? When you came back home, were you still in the military for a while?
From Iraq?
Uh-huh.
No, I actually re-enlisted while I was over in Iraq. And at the time, they gave out options. You could either go to, say, Ranger School or Airborne School, or you could choose duty station. I chose to go the route of choosing duty station, so I selected to go to Fort Benning, which I got stationed with 3rd ID.
And how long, when you came back, did you stay in the military?
I was released, my official last date was in 2013.
2013. Do you remember, was that before moving into the Purcell Lane property?
Yes, sir.
And when you're in the military, infantry, they teach you how to shoot?
Yes, sir.
Teach you how to shoot rifles?
Yes, sir.
What type of rifles did you carry when you were in the military?
The M4.
And teach you how to shoot pistols?
Very, very seldom.
You didn't get a pistol as a sidearm as an infantry?
No, sir.
Mainly just the M4?
So in the military, in the Army, the only people who had pistols were officers and MPs. But the rest of us, we had either M4s or you were a assault gunner, which that's what I was on that deployment. Assault gunners, it was a machine gun that I was able to carry around with me all the time.
Does that have anything to do with your size?
Possibly. I mean, they weren't going to give
Someone my size, that gun?
I mean, you could carry it around. You wouldn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy carrying that gun around with me all the time.
How big are you?
Currently, I'm 6'6", about 285 pounds.
And what size was your dad?
I outgrew him and my brother by 1 or 2 inches, and my dad was anywhere from, I'd say, 290 to 300 pounds.
So at the time of his death, around 300?
Yes, sir.
Was he a little bit short, just a little bit shorter than you?
Yes.
And when you were in the military and you got the training that you received, at some point did you just decide to get out and go do something else?
No, sir. I actually was let go from the military for reduction of force. It was during the Obama administration, and they basically kind of did a lottery system. If you join between a certain time and you've done so many days of service, that's how you were selected. So on my DD-214, it says reason of separation is reduction in force.
Now, let's talk about this secret marriage of yours. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
All right. Look at the jury and tell them about this secret marriage that you had and what was going on. Who was it with and what was going on?
So it was with Gina. We both in process at Fort Bliss together. She was in the military as well. She did financing. We both got to Fort Bliss at the same time, and we met during the in-processing, which took several weeks. And we all had a group of friends hanging out, and we eventually started dating. I deployed, she didn't, and she was my girlfriend, and I was in love, and scared and just had a lot of different emotions.
Where'd y'all meet?
Where we meet?
Yeah.
In El Paso, Texas.
You're working together, the same thing, or not really?
Well,
Did
we
you meet on
didn't
the
we
base,
didn't
or how
work
did y'all-
together.
How did y'all meet is what I'm asking.
During the in processing, we wound up ending up sitting next to each other, and then pretty much all the group of people that we were sitting around, we all became friends and hung out all the time.
How long did y'all date?
We were together until after, till all the way until I moved to Fort Benning. But going back on, to us getting married, we talked about when I came home on R&R from Iraq, she came to Georgia to be with me, and, we talked about getting married and all. I never got down on one knee and proposed to her, anything, but at the time of the wars, 2 states did a proxy marriage. You had a single proxy, I believe, state of Texas, and then a double proxy in the state of Montana. So basically all you had to do was just fill out paperwork, get it notarized, pay the fees, mail it off, and you were legally married. So we went ahead and did that. And what the plan was I was gonna come back and we were gonna move to Fort Benning together and actually do it the right way, have a wedding and, tell everybody. But things didn't work out once we were together for quite a period of time and decided to split ways.
So how long were y'all actually together? How much time were y'all together, whether dating and married?
Besides deployments, man, it was several years.
Did y'all live together?
We did live together out in El Paso when I got back from Iraq. We lived in an apartment for about 4 or 5 months.
Did you hide her from your family?
No,
Did you bring her around your family?
as much as I could. I mean, we lived out in Texas, so.
Did they ever lay eyes on her and see her?
Oh, yes, sir. She actually wound up getting out of the Army before I did, and she moved back here to Georgia because she was originally from Rome, Georgia, where she lived with her family, and she used to go and have dinner with my dad while I was deployed.
Did they like her?
Oh, yes. I mean,
All right, here's a $1 million question. Why didn't you tell your family you were married?
it was kind of a thing that, I'm kind of old school in a way, kind of like my dad. I mean, I've wanted to do the whole ask her father's hand in marriage, but he lived in Colombia, so couldn't
Columbia,
really do
South
that.
Carolina?
No, Colombia, South America. So I've met her brothers before, but didn't get to meet a lot of her family. But she met all my brothers and my brother and my sisters, my mom and my dad.
Well, did y'all divorce or separate because of something bad, or it just didn't work out?
It didn't work. She wanted it. I didn't, because I loved her. But I wasn't her first or her last marriage, put it that way. So we were just young, and I was just going through a crazy time. I mean, I was being deployed to Iraq. I mean, I didn't know if I was going to come back.
When did you end up telling your family about the marriage?
After all this happened, and we were sitting in the law office, and
Manny Aurora's office?
Manny Aurora's, and he said, if there's anything that needs to be told that could come out of this, it needs to be told now. And that was the only thing that I was like, oh crap, I might as well tell them. I mean, we were already divorced, and I didn't know how extensive it was going to become. So
Did you tell Amanda too? Does she know?
they were all in the room.
Chris, Emily, Amanda.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you some questions about what your dad was like. You said he's smart. When you say smart, how smart was your dad?
Very. In my eyes, he was the smartest man I knew.
In what ways did he show that?
Oh, growing up, he always, was grabbing our books from school and reading stuff, and he always loved watching Jeopardy, and, constantly watching that, and he just, Alex Trebet will ask a question, boom, he'll give out the answer. I mean, put it this way, my dad was so smart, he talked in his sleep. And if you caught him talking in his sleep, you give him a math problem, and I'm not saying 2 + 2, like something big, he'll give you the right answer in his sleep.
How did he do in law school?
If I remember right, he was top of his class. He was either number 1 or number 2. I kind of want to say number 2 because I do kind of remember him being ticked off that he didn't get the number 1 spot.
When it came to his work ethic, what was that like?
He worked a lot. He loved his job. He was very good at what he did. If he wasn't doing law, he was working around the house.
When he was doing his legal work, would he take a lot of vacations, or is he one of those guys that would just work a lot?
He would work a lot.
Would
The
he-
only time that we took vacations is when he had to do law seminars down. It originally started off in Gulf Shores, and then eventually it moved over to Sandestin area. That's how we did our vacations.
So he would go get training at a very nice resort or something. Y'all go with him?
Yes, sir.
Did you enjoy those?
Oh, yes.
Whole family go?
Every year we had to do it.
He had to get his continuing legal education hours in. Did he go do that?
Yes, that's what I presume it was.
Would he be checking his? Now, I know you said your dad is very smart, but when it comes to when you talk to your dad, or the kids would talk with your dad, when they talk with Gary, would it be odd for them to text or email him to have a conversation or solve a problem with him? I mean, is he somebody that communicated by email or text message with the family?
Both. Before really texting became a thing, it was, email. So that's how he would communicate with me when I was over in Iraq, or when I lived in El Paso, Texas. He would send me emails.
You remember his email address?
I want to say it was gfarris@bird.com, I think it was, something along those lines.
What about your dad's wit? Could he cuss you with his wit? Was he quick-witted? If you did something, would he say something? What was his personality like when he would have banter or debate with you or anything like that?
I mean, he would respond fairly quickly and all, but
Was your
not
dad-
aggressively.
Well, I'm not saying that. Was he sarcastic? Was he straightforward? What was his personality like? Was he a joker?
He always cracked up jokes. I mean, to me, they were corny, but, he always cracked up jokes.
When it came to the things that he really liked, how much did he like Mountain Dew and cigarettes?
2 things about my dad. He always had a cigarette in his hand, and he always had a Mountain Dew in his hand.
How much do you think he would smoke a day?
He was a pretty heavy smoker.
Did you ever get on him, tell him to quit smoking?
Oh, yes.
What did he say?
Oh, I'm going to, I'll quit one day. That was always his, response to it.
How about the Mountain Dew?
Yeah, you didn't take those Mountain Dews away from him. It was like water to him. He didn't drink alcohol. He occasionally drank coffee, but no, 99% of the time it was a Mountain Dew.
And your mom, how did she feel about him smoking and drinking Mountain Dew?
She didn't enjoy it. I know more of the smoking she didn't like. Mountain Dews, I know as he got older and the health got worse, she tried to start buying caffeine-free Mountain Dews, and he wasn't a fan of them. So
Where would he keep the Mountain Dew?
in the garage refrigerator.
Now, is it true that he wouldn't even go to ball games anymore because they wouldn't let you smoke and things like that? I guess didn't enjoy going out because of couldn't smoke at certain places, or
No, I wouldn't really say that. I mean, he still went. I mean, we went before he passed. We went to the SEC championship. I believe it was the year prior.
and who went with you to that?
It was my dad and I, Chad and Chris.
When you say Chad, I know who you're saying. Who is Chad?
Chad is Amanda's now husband.
Chad Bruce.
Yes.
And I think he started dating your sister Amanda. Is that how he came into the family?
Yes, man. At that time that we went to the SEC championship, he was dating Amanda.
At the time of your dad's death, would you say he had a lot of friends he would hang out with, or was he more close at home and homebody?
My dad was a homebody.
Would he have, to your knowledge, would he have friends though? Or is he more just kind of around the family?
He was more around the family. Every once in a while he would go skeet shooting. I don't know if they were with clients or work friends, I would say. I mean, I really don't, he wasn't friends with like the neighbor down the road and go play golf with him. It was always either somebody from the law firm or somebody he's done work for.
When he would get home at night, he'd get out of the car, would he go look at the pasture, just walk out there, have a cigarette, or what was he like when he got back?
So my dad was very routine. You can read him like a book. He always, depending on traffic, there was a certain time frame he would always come home, and he would immediately come in, pull into the garage, grab a Mountain Dew, and go change clothes. And once he changed clothes, it varied. He could have gone. He would have either gone up to the, sat in the driveway and looked around and had a cigarette and stuff, or he would go straight down to the office and start working.
Now, the type of law practice that your father did, was it corporate law?
Yes, sir.
He wasn't doing divorce law?
No, sir.
He wasn't doing criminal defense law?
No, sir.
He wasn't doing anything, I don't want to say exciting. He wasn't doing anything dangerous?
No.
He worked in an office in Atlanta?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, did your dad have any enemies whatsoever at the time of his death?
No.
Did you ever see anybody that had a beef with him or a problem with him or anything like that?
Absolutely not.
Did you even see around the time of his death that anybody outside the family that he had even disagreements or arguments with, or any something like a road rage or something like that?
No.
Could you think of anybody outside your family that wanted to do your father harm?
No.
Did he have concerns about someone doing harm to him that you saw at that time?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Your dad's health, he would have some things called spells. Tell the jury what that was.
So, best way I can describe it was he would get very weak. He talked very thick tongue, like his tongue was swollen up, and some people would think he was drunk the way he kind of slurred, but he just got very exhausted and wanted to go lay down. And when he would have them, that's what he did. He would go and lay down, either on the couch or go lay in bed, and he would sleep for a couple hours.
And when did these spells start occurring?
I think they kind of started possibly at the old house in Alfred and Hampton Hall, but they got more prominent after we moved to the farm. They just started occurring more and more and more.
Now, is this when he would have these spells? Is it any sign that was coming on, or were it just all of a sudden just start happening?
We talked about it, and he said, yeah, he could kind of feel, the first thing that he would notice is he'll feel, really tired, like he wanted to go lay down and take a nap. So once he started feeling that, that's when his speech started getting slurry, like he had a real thick tongue. And once that happened, that's when he would just go and lay down.
And when he would lay down, did he miss work because of these spells or anything that you know of?
Well, you mean, yeah, he was sleeping, but
How the frequency? How often would these spells come on, and how long would they last? Is what I'm trying to get at.
He'll have, it'll happen like one day a week. I I really don't remember him having like 1 or 2 spells a week. So he'll have about, he'll have one day during the week, and then 2 or 3 weeks down the road, he'll have another one.
Was it to a degree that it dramatically interrupted his life and things he was doing? Or was it not that?
I remember one time we were working on the farm. I think it was when we were building the fence, and he said, I feel like I got a spell coming on. And he will go and sit on the RTV, and I'll just kind of look over there and check on him. And I remember that day, I was like, are you feeling all right? And he was like, yeah, I need to go lay down. I'm like, okay. I was like, I'll, come over there and check on you.
Outside of that, did he, I think you told law enforcement he didn't even have kidney stones or anything like that. Is there anything else about his health that you saw that was an issue at the time, around the time of his death?
I know, well, before his death, there was one night, Melody called me up and said, get over to the house, your father's acting very strange. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, he's seeing like I think she said like seeing palm trees and stuff like that. He's just talking weird. And so I immediately jumped up off my couch and left the barn and went over to the house. And yeah, I've never seen my father like that. He was kind of talking like a child would. And we wound up taking his blood pressure, and she bought a blood sugar thing, whatever. She pricked his finger and tested that. I don't remember what it came back as a reading, but I called a friend that was a nurse and asked her, what should we do? And when I told her the reading, she was like, get him to emergency room now. And we took him to the emergency room.
When was that?
I don't remember the exact date, but it was definitely within a year prior to his death. So it was fairly,
Was that the last time, was that when he was in the hospital? Was that possibly April, or was that something else you're talking about?
That was probably it then, because it was within that same year of 2018. So it was just prior to his death, within a few months, I would say. But I really don't remember the exact date.
Did your dad want to stay in the hospital?
No.
What did he do?
Well, so, we get to I remember we got him into the Sequoia. I drove, and we pull up to the emergency door there.
Where'd y'all go?
We went to, I guess that's Northside Hospital in Forsyth,
Right.
exit 14. Pulled up to the emergency door, and I looked at Melody, and I was like, okay, take him in. She's like, no, you take him in. I'm like, no, I got to park the vehicle. Take him in. He's your husband. You know more of his medical history than I do. So, take him in. So she took him in. And then he was still very lethargic, I guess, would say. He was, but he was starting to get better. And by the time, the doctor finally came in and all, he was kind of back to his normal self. And then they said they wanted to keep him in the hospital and kind of keep track of everything. And he stayed.
They want to keep him just to observe him, or
Yes.
run tests, or what was it?
Yeah, they were trying to figure out, because we brought up about him having spells and all this stuff, and he's been to the doctor. He went to his physician all the time. They thought it was a vitamin B deficiency and maybe a testosterone problem, or nobody could figure out what was causing these spells. And this was a bad one. I mean, I was worried for the way he was acting. So he stayed in the hospital, I want to say 1 or 2 nights, but he was back to his normal self before they even moved him upstairs.
And did he check himself out of the hospital and come back home?
Yes.
Did you see him have any other symptoms after that, or
No, I did not.
did he have to have surgery?
No.
Do you have to have any procedures?
Not that I remember, no.
Outside of just going to the hospital, nothing really from that?
No, not that I can remember.
Did he bleed at all during this?
No.
Did you see any blood coming from his throat or his mouth?
No.
Did you ever see your dad around this time or any this time cough and spit blood up?
No, sir.
Did you ever find bloody rags or Kleenexes or the idea that there was some type of blood or your dad had some type of throat cancer or problems, anything with his throat?
No.
Was your dad suicidal?
No.
Did you see anything about your dad that made you think, my dad's got thoughts about hurting himself or killing himself or anything like that?
Never once in my entire life.
Outside of the spells, is there anything else health-wise that you think the jury should know about?
The man had high blood pressure. Pretty much everybody knows that. It runs in my family. But yeah, I was always worried he was going to have a heart attack one day. That was my biggest concern, was him having a heart attack because of how much he smoked and, the amount of Mountain Dews he drank, and he didn't go out and run. Last time I ever remember my dad jogging is when we lived in Birmingham. So,
Did your dad like to walk a long distance?
No.
He liked to drive that RTV?
That RTV his butt was glued to it.
When you talk about your dad's, I think you could almost, I don't think he said set a clock by him, but write a book by him or something about his habits when he would come home. Would he do the same thing? His procedure, his routine was the same thing?
Oh,
pretty much?
yes. I mean, like I said, if you were around him enough, you would be able to pick up on his routine very quickly. He always did the same kind of thing every day.
I hear you're a good cook. Is that true?
Well, in the kitchen,
Or I guess
if you
grilling,
like,
barbecuing?
I could do some barbecue.
I think your mom, did y'all buy, near your dad's death, did y'all get a new barbecue or grill or something?
Yes, I got for my birthday that year, I was asked what I wanted, and I said I wanted an electric smoker.
Smoker, that's right.
Yes.
And did your mom and you use that to smoke something for the family or friends?
It was my dad's birthday, I think it was, just prior to his death. Smoked a whole bunch of barbecue chicken.
Now, on July 5th, 2018 is when you found the remains, and that's that Thursday. Was your birthday 2 days later?
Yes, sir.
So July 7th?
Yes, sir.
And when was your dad's birthday? Was it in June, the end of June?
June 27th is his birthday.
All right, so you have some cooking skills, grilling skills, things like that. How about your dad?
Not so much. I don't ever really remember my dad grilling. He did I do remember when he did it when we were younger, but once I got old enough to start cooking on the grill, I was the one who did it.
Now, was your mom a good cook?
Very.
And did she do most of the cooking in the house?
Yes, sir.
When your dad wanted something to eat, food, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, who would cook it?
When?
What was his routine? If he got home so do this for me. He gets home at night. About what time does he get home, and what's he do till he goes to bed? What was his routine?
Well, I mean, when I'm asking when, I mean, at the farm or back at the old house?
At the house and the farm.
At the farm?
His routine around the time of his death. That's what I'm interested in.
Okay. So he'll be home roughly 6, 7 o'clock, like I said, depending on traffic. And cooking dinner wise, if Melody was in town, she would fix something. But towards the later part of, closer to his death, she was not home a lot. She was constantly going up to Tennessee. And then I would be the one that would either have to fix dinner or go get us something to eat.
When your dad would come home in the house, you've got in Purcell, 2155 Purcell Lane. If I said what floor in the house would be his domain where he would hang out, which one would that be?
No, it'd be the basement.
And if he wanted to get something to eat, how would he get in the house? He didn't go anywhere, and the defendant your mother would cook him food. How would he do that?
He'll come up come up to the kitchen and eat it at the kitchen island.
Would he eat upstairs?
Yes, sir.
He wouldn't take it back downstairs and eat, or he'd eat
The only thing he would have taken downstairs to eat was dessert, key lime pie.
He liked dessert?
Oh, he loved his key lime pie.
So he'd come upstairs, eat dinner?
Yes.
If you were sitting in the kitchen, where in the kitchen would he sit? I know there was a table kind of outside of it, but where in the kitchen would he sit and eat?
So in the kitchen, we had a very large island, and there was 3 or 4 bar stools, and he would sit at one of those bar stools.
See this photograph here of Thrasher 72?
Yes, sir.
You were in this photograph, or is it a different one?
No, it's so yeah, right there where your mouse is. That's where he would sit and eat dinner.
How would he, when he'd come up and just sit down, would he eat with other people, eat by himself? What would he do?
Well, there was nobody else there. It was only.
If the defendant was fixing dinner or anything, would she eat with him, or he eat by himself?
He would be eating by himself.
Would you eat with him at all, or would you be doing something on your own?
I would, if I came over there to cook him dinner or get food, I would go down to the basement and eat in front of the TV. My dad loved to read, so he would read while he ate dinner.
What kind of things would he read when he was eating dinner? Leisure stuff, not law stuff, or would it be work?
No, it would be, history books or, war books or whatever book he was reading at the time. We had a library or office in the house, and there was a lot of books in there, and that's what, I do know a lot of his books were in there that he's read.
When he was done eating, would he go back downstairs or stay up on the first level?
He would pretty much go back downstairs.
What would he do when you go back downstairs?
He would go into his office and probably check emails and stuff and have, cigarettes and, just, kind of finish up the day for work.
After was it pretty much this is his routine? Every night he comes home, dinner, go downstairs, work a little bit, go watch TV, go to bed?
Pretty much. The only time that it would change would be, on a Friday, he would come home and start doing some kind of project, doing some kind of work on the farm.
And where would he sleep?
He slept in the bedroom down in the basement.
Every night?
Yes, sir.
Would he sleep? Would he lock his door?
No, he would not.
When your mom, where would she sleep?
She would have slept in the master bedroom.
Would she ever use something to brace or lock her door?
I didn't see her do it, but I saw one sitting behind the door of the bedroom.
Saw what was it? Describe for the jury.
If I remember right, it was kind of like a prop bar. It had a flat surface on one side and kind of a fork on the other. It was white, I want to say, but it was, you put it up under the door handle.
The doorknob itself?
Yeah, so it was kind of like a state-of-the-art version of propping the chair up underneath it for keeping somebody from opening the door.
How would your dad sleep, and what kind of clothing?
He always slept naked.
I'm sorry?
He always slept naked in the nude.
That's just what he did?
Yeah.
I believe your dad was about 58 at the time of his death?
Yes, sir.
Was your mom about the same age?
Yes.
I believe they had been together for 38 years.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to you about your mom. I think I understand, but you've referred to her as Melody. Do you not call her mom anymore?
No.
Because of this?
Yes.
Now, up to this point, though, until this occurred, did you get along with your mom?
We had our good days and bad days. We did a lot of stuff together. Because my dad was at the office, and whenever she was home, she liked to decorate the house, and I did a lot of the projects there at the farm. Like I did the backsplash on the bar down in the basement, and finished out the so-called wine cellar. And she would always be, decorating or wanting to paint something, and so we would do a lot of stuff like that together, and go and get, go to Scottsdale Farms and buy plants to plant out around.
Did your mom graduate from college? Do you know?
As far as I'm aware, no, she did not.
Was she smart? Is she smart?
Not like my dad, but she's not dumb.
Common sense?
Oh, yes.
She hardworking?
You know,
She work outside?
oh, yes, man. All the time we worked in the yard.
She hands on?
Yes.
Would she get in there and do projects with y'all or with you?
It depends on what project. I mean, she didn't help my dad and I do the stone wall between the house and the pond, but she got out there and planted plants and, you know,
Did she get
shoveled
her,
mulch around.
did she get her hands dirty?
Yes.
Could she get things done if she wanted to?
Yes.
Would you consider her strong-willed or weak-willed?
Strong-willed.
Does she have opinions?
Oh, yes.
Is she afraid or shy to share those opinions?
No.
Would she have opinions about you?
Yeah, I'm sure.
About her other children?
Oh, definitely. Chris, she kind of favored Emily and definitely Amanda.
How about your dad?
My dad was harder on my brother and I. He was a sucker for my sisters. You know, they're his baby girls. My dad was old school. He, you know, I remember growing up, if I needed $5, I needed to tell him 5 reasons why I needed it. So,
Is that just how he was?
yeah, he tried to just, you know, instill discipline in us, make us, you know, a good person, a better person.
Did your dad like things like extravagant things, or what was his taste in? What kind of things did he like? If you said my daddy really liked fill in the blank, what would it be?
It's kind of tough. I mean, he always wanted to take care of other people first. He always put everybody else first. He made sure Melody had what she would want to have, and all of us. I mean, he always made it a point to make sure, you know, we all had the best Christmas as possible. And he wasn't really, you know, he drove a Suburban. He drove it until over 200,000 miles, and it was me who convinced him, go buy yourself a Mercedes. I mean, you deserve it. I mean, he wasn't a flashy person, so it's kind of hard to say.
What kind of Mercedes did he have?
It was an E-Class.
Tell me what that means. I don't know what that means.
E-Class is kind of your mid-size sedan. He looked at the S-Class, which is the big, fully sized Mercedes, and he was just like, it's just too much car. I don't need that.
How much do those cars cost that he had?
Well, his, I mean, brand new, that was, at that time, probably would have been maybe $60,000-$70,000 car.
What kind of car did your mom have?
Well, she drove Infiniti G35 for the longest time, and then she drove the Toyota Sequoia.
What kind of car or vehicle did you have
At which point I've had,
around the time your dad's death?
I was driving the so-called farm truck, which was a Chevy 2500 diesel, non-dually. It was just a regular back axle. We didn't have the wide tire ones.
That was your dad's truck. You purchased it.
Yeah, he purchased it, and it was titled for a farm truck for a tax write-off, but it was
Sure.
I drove that vehicle.
The vehicle / the work truck.
Yes.
If I said, what kind of things does your mom like around the time of your death, or the death of your father? Just fill in the blank. What things did she like? What were her things?
What do you mean, and what she liked?
She had expensive things like furniture. What was her things that she really?
Everything she had was like top of the line, Tory Burch or Chanel or, you know, all high end clothing. It was,
She liked Christmas trees?
oh yes.
Around Christmas time, would she decorate the house?
Yes, she would.
Tell the jury how she would decorate the house and how many Christmas trees y'all have.
What? 1, 2, 3. There was about 4 or 5 Christmas trees. She did all the inside stuff. She was very good at it. I will say the Christmas trees we had were something you would see in like a Southern Living magazine. She liked to collect the Christopher Racco ornaments, which is a very sought after ornament because they're hand blown, hand painted.
Say that again? I didn't catch that.
They're called Christopher Racco ornaments.
Okay. Take it they're expensive?
They vary in price. They can range from $10 a piece to several $100s a piece. It just depends because he changed his ornaments every year. That's why they were collectors.
She do things like that?
Oh yeah, she very enjoyed it very much.
Did she have parties for the law office or go to parties for the law office?
I remember, when I was in like middle school and maybe early parts of high school, my dad would have firm Christmas parties at the house. So there would be a lot of people over there, and that kind of ended before I graduated high school.
Did your dad take care of your mom when it comes to things that he provide nice things for?
All the time, yes.
Like, did she have fur coats, mink coats, whatever you call it? Did she have nice clothing?
Yes.
Did she have nice jewelry?
Yes.
She had nice dishes and things like that in the house?
Yes.
Clothing?
Yes.
She liked to shop?
Oh, yes.
Did you give her money so she could shop?
Yes. Well, she had, pretty much our entire life, she always had full access to the bank account. It was just the last 2 or 3 years prior to his death that it got restricted.
Things kind of. How would you describe, at the time of your father's death, how would you describe their marriage to each other?
Not good.
Why so?
Because she was constantly disappearing, taking off, spending an abundance of money. Said she was going to do one thing, and that's not what she was going to do. And they were constantly arguing with each other. Never out in public. It was always at the house. But
Did your dad ever hit her?
no,
Lay a finger on her?
no.
Was he a screamer, yeller, cusser? What was your dad like when they would argue?
I wouldn't really say it's screaming, but he raised his voice, but he never was screaming so hard that someone would lose their voice. He was never like that.
And what was she like?
Oh, she screamed. She definitely, expressed her feelings in a way, I guess I would say.
What do you mean?
She definitely would scream and cuss and, show aggression.
Who is Ted Wiley?
Ted used to date my Aunt Sherry, which was my dad's sister.
Your dad has how many brothers and sisters? Or had, I'm sorry.
My dad has an older sister, Patricia, then my dad, and then my Uncle John, and my Aunt Sherry.
So what was Ted related? How was he related or involved with the family? So Sherry.
Ted was dating Sherry.
And what time was this? And about how old were you when this was going on?
If I remember right, they started dating roughly maybe when Amanda was born. So they were together for a very long time. Pretty much all of ours
How
childhood.
many years do you think they were together? Are you talking about 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever?
Oh, yeah, definitely north of 15, I would say.
And Did you see him often?
Every Christmas and Thanksgiving.
And at some point, did you notice something, or did you learn of something going on between him and your mom?
Yes. So when my grandmother, Melody's mother, Kay Walker, when she had a heart attack and had to have open heart surgery, I basically went with her and I helped stay with my grandmother in the hospital, especially when she was in the ICU.
When was this? What year are we talking about?
This is 2005 or 6. So, I was up there for quite a period of time. I ended up, quitting my job at Regal Nissan to, help out, with this situation, because my dad was still, working. And
so how long a time would your mom and you be separated from your dad?
we would stay up there for several weeks. It depended on what condition my grandmother was in and all. But for the beginning of it, we pretty much did not leave from being up there. It's once she got out of the ICU and got moved into a more private room, that's when we kind of didn't have to be up there as much.
So this is taking care of your mother's mom,
Yes.
maternal mother, grandmother,
Yes.
and the defendant was there to help her mom, and you were with her.
Yes.
How did Ted come into the picture?
So, Sherry and Ted, they live there in Muscle Shoals, Florence area and all. So, whenever we would go out to eat, we a lot of times went to eat with them. We always went to Logan Roadhouse or somewhere like that. And then after a couple months, I remember the night we went to Logan's Roadhouse and Ted came up and grabbed my mother's rear end like somebody would be doing who's in a relationship, like a full-blown relationship. And that right there triggered. And from there on, she started disappearing. She would leave, say, "Oh, I'm going to run to the store," and not come back until either very, very early in the morning or till the next day, and leave me stranded with no vehicle.
Did you talk about this to your brothers and sisters? Did they know, or just you?
I think I've probably told Chris. Don't really remember if I told Emily or Amanda. I did get my dad. I told him, I was like, she keeps running off of Ted. And, they keep going and doing things together and leaving me stranded at the hospital or the house with no vehicle.
Would your dad help take care of your mother's mom, your grandmother, her mom? Would your dad do anything financially or anything to help her?
If I remember right, I know he kind of helped. I want to say my grandparents had like a mortgage on the house for some kind of project, something with the foundation or something. I think he kind of took control of paying for that. I don't know if it was my grandmother's money or his money, but he kind of, took control of the, finance side of the mortgage.
Did you ever know anything about a $50,000 home equity loan or something like that involving Ted Wiley?
No.
Did your parents, because of Ted or anything, did they ever separate or have an issue that you saw?
From what I remembered, it was by this time I was in the process of joining the Army. I went through basic training and I was deployed to Iraq within 4 months of coming out of basic training. So I was over in El Paso, Texas, not here. And I do remember I deployed and I remember getting an email from my dad, and he, stated that he was going to be filing for divorce. I responded with, "Do what you got to do, but I really don't want to be, I don't need to know anything else. I got too much going on over here."
And that was over Ted?
Yes.
What year was that?
That was That either had to be 2009 or 2010, so I was deployed to Iraq.
And after you got that email, did your dad ever say anything else to you about what was going on?
No, sir.
Did he follow through any more on the divorce, or was that the last you heard about that?
That was the last I've ever heard about it.
And then you came home?
Yes.
Just at this time, I'm continuing to evidence S. Farris, number 10. I don't think there's an objection to it.
No objection.
It's a move.
This is State's Exhibit S. Farris 10. We're taking your name and using numbers with that. But can you tell us what, at the top, it has an email there. Can you read that email for us?
The Gary4250@gmail.com.
And what is the company that sent this?
That would be from Bank of America.
And if you could just read out loud what it says.
Hi Gary, credit transaction was made above your chosen alert limit. Amount $165.82. Credit card, Bank of America, Visa, Platinum Plus, ending in 1727. Where at Scottsdale Farms and Company, Alpharetta, Georgia. Type retail. Transaction date July 1st, 2018.
Did your dad have several credit cards and things like that?
Yes, he did.
Did he have the ability that he would get notice if anything was, I think, over $20 or something like that?
As far as I'm aware, any kind of transactions, he would get some kind of notification.
And if he was notified, would he ever ask you about what you're doing with the money or what was going on?
Yes.
How quick would he be on that? Like, if he got a notice, how quickly could you get a phone call or text message?
It varied. It could be within 5 minutes, or it could have been later on that evening.
Now, this one in particular, do you know what that card was or who had it?
I presume that might have been the one my dad had. I'm not 100% because there was several different credit cards.
Now, your dad controlled the finances in the family, is that right?
Yes.
If you would just tell the jury, when it came to your finances, what type of access to a debit card, a credit card, whether it's personal or for the farm work, tell the jury what you would have.
So I would either have, beginning off, I would, get his debit card. I'll get it for him to go buy horse feed or, fertilizer or anything like that. And then he wound up giving me a credit card that I kept all the time. And that's, a lot of purchases were made doing that. I do know at one point he gave me a debit card, and that was, I don't know if it was his main account. I don't think it was, because he would constantly have to put money into it. So if I, needed to go get food or fertilizer or something like that, a lot of times there wasn't enough money in it, and I would have to send him a text saying, hey, put some money in it, in the account, so I could go and buy this and this and this.
And would he do anything to, would he ever get on you about your spending?
Every once in a while. So I worked for my dad, when I got released from the military, I got back into selling cars for a little while. And then I worked at a warehouse, and then by the time we lived on the farm, we realized it was kind of a full-time job, and also I kind of maintained it. And we had an agreement, because I lost my job at the warehouse, and, we sat and talked, and he's like, well, look, this property is a lot of work and everything like that, so, I'll give you a credit card, and you're able to go and, have lunch and stuff like that and all. But, if any time I really wanted to go buy myself something, which I never really did, I'll let them know, or so-called, hey, is it okay if I go buy this?
Let me ask you about, let's go and talk about your work you did on the property. 2155 Purcell Lane, that's a hobby farm?
Yeah, I would say.
Were y'all looking at several places before your dad bought that?
We looked at a couple of different properties. Some we just didn't like at all. It got down to this property and one other property. I do know.
What was the difference between this one and the other one?
This one had a lot more land. The other one sat on I wouldn't call it a lake, very large pond. And it was on the back side of it. And, when we looked at it, the cove was pretty dried up. And so it wasn't much of a lake. So,
So who wanted in the family, including all your brothers and sisters, who won the one at the lake, if you would, and the farm that you moved into? Who was up for what? Let's start with Amanda. Which one did Amanda want?
I don't think she ever saw it.
How about Emily?
I don't think she ever saw it either, too, and neither did Chris.
Which one did you want?
I went with my mom and dad to look at the properties.
What, did you have a favorite out of the last two?
The one, yeah, I liked the one that he ended up purchasing more.
How about between your mom and dad? Did they like one over the other?
I mean, realistically, I think it came would say a coin toss in a way. I mean, I gave my points. I was like, look, you got a lot more stuff you can do, on this property versus the other one.
So when you end up, your dad going after and buying the farm, what year was that?
Around 2013.
And how old were you at that time?
Oh, you're gonna make me do math.
I am. I'm not very good at myself, so we'll figure out together.
I had been around 30, maybe.
Well, let's see. Was it 35 when your father?
Yes.
You're about to turn 36.
I just turned that July 7th. I would have been
35. Okay, so that was 2018 for 5 years, so around 30.
Mm-hmm.
And so, did you live so you were working and living on the property about 5 years?
Yes. From the time they purchased it to the time of his death, I lived there.
And Scott, I'm not trying to be in slow down. I don't know any other way to really ask you, but what I want you to tell the jury, and what I'm interested in is what kind of contract, I imagine it's just a word, just a spoken agreement, but did you get an allowance? Did you get a stipend? Did you get a salary? How did you make a living and buy stuff? And what was the arrangement between you and your father while you worked the property?
There was no contract or anything like that. It was basically, so around the time that, the recession was kind of starting to turn, When I first got out of the military, I tried to join Milton Police Force. Couldn't, since I was not post-certified, they didn't have the funds to hire me on. And once I started looking into other cities and counties, it was all the same thing. So work was still hard to find, like decent paying. So, and the job I had at the warehouse, I was making $10 an hour. And once I got, I was let go from that job, we sat down and talked, and I was like, look, I want to still pursue, law enforcement, but there's nothing I can get into right now. And that's when we came on the agreement that, I would manage the farm, because since he was working Monday through Friday in Atlanta, that, basically he would give me a credit card, debit card, and, I was able to go eat lunch and stuff like that and pay my cell phone bill. I didn't have much bills at all. So he never really gave me an allowance, except for the time that, he decided to open up the other bank account, and, he didn't keep a lot of money in it, because around that time, Melody kept asking for the card I had and going off and buying stuff.
Did your dad want her to have that card?
No, especially the credit card. When he gave me the credit card, I remember he sent me a text saying, hold on to this like your life depended on it or something. But
To keep it away from the defendant?
yes, he basically he said, don't give this card to anybody.
Which credit card would that be?
I believe that was the Ducks Unlimited Visa card.
When you worked the land, there were horses and animals and things, pigs, goats, chickens. You had all kinds of stuff on there, didn't you?
Yeah, we had everything pretty much except for cattle.
All right, now your first house. Now your mom's background, her father and mother had it's Ace Hardware or some type of hardware store.
Ace Hardware, yes, sir.
So more of kind of a country background or a rural background.
No, Musk Shoals it wasn't a huge town, but it was. I mean,
From
yeah,
the
you get on
country, or
outskirts.
from the country, or from the city is usually how I ask people. Would you say your mom was from the country or from the city?
Man, honestly, I want to kind of say in between, but it was.
Fair
No,
enough.
there was no,
How about your dad?
not country.
Did they grow up having horses and things like that and animals?
No, none of us ever had that.
So when they got this hobby farm, did any of y'all know anything about horses and how to take care of them and ride them?
No, we did not.
Was it a learning experience?
Yes.
How many horses did y'all have on the property, and where'd you get them from?
We had 4 horses. The first horse we got was Rebel. Some people down the road, they were moving. He was an older horse. They gave him to us along with a pony, but the pony was already promised to somebody else. So we just kind of took care of it for a little while until that person was able to come and get it. And then we got Bluebell, Chester, and Blackjack, the other 3 horses. And that was, we purchased them through a friend of the neighbors, Jackie. She lived down the hill from the farm.
Jackie has some type of place for donkeys or something like that, or rescue, or
At the time, she had a buttload of chickens, all kinds of fancy little hen ones and pigeons and big chickens. She had a whole bunch of chickens.
was her house stand out in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, you had to pass it every single time you came to the farm.
And was Jackie close to your mom?
She hung out with her quite a bit.
Now, these horses, who would ride the horses?
I would, my mom would, my nieces, my dad once in a blue moon.
Did he get thrown from a horse or anything?
He did get thrown one time. He got on Chester. Chester was a more high-spirited horse. And what I mean by high-spirited, that, if a squirrel jumped from branch to branch, he would jump. He would get startled. So it took a more experienced rider to ride him. But my dad wanted to ride him. And I was nervous about it. And sure enough, when he got on him, he started bucking and bucked my dad off.
Did he get hurt?
He did. He hit his head when he came down, and we ended up taking him to the hospital to get a CT scan because my medical training from the Army, I noticed that he wasn't answering all the questions right that I was asking him, and
Got his bell rung.
yeah, he definitely.
How about your
Has
mom? Did your mom ride the horses?
She did.
She ever get hurt by the horse?
There was one day, it was first day of college football, and my Aunt Sherry was on her way into town, and I was up in my apartment about to start watching football. I think the Alabama game was about to start, and she called me and said, "Get down here, I just got kicked by a horse." And I go down there, she got kicked in the leg, and her kneecap was on the side of her leg.
What year was that?
I want to say 2016.
Did she ride the horses after that?
When she was finally able to, yes. I think I remember her getting on. I don't really remember, but I know my dad didn't get back on a horse after he got bucked off.
When it came to taking care of the animals, part of your, duty or job that you would do, how many animals, what was your routine every day for the animals? What time did you have to feed them? What did you have to do?
I would wake up in the morning, and depends on, a lot of times we left the horses out in the pasture. But if I knew there was bad weather coming or it got more winter time and all, that's when I would start bringing them in the barn. So I would wake up, we had a whole bunch of goats. I would feed the goats, make sure everybody had water, feed, and just kind of along those lines. And then I would start, blowing off driveways and stuff like that, keeping the place looking nice.
How long would it take to, you feed them how many times a day? Or what would your routine?
About twice a day. So in the morning, it depends on the animals. So the horses, they would get a little bit of feed in the morning and then some in the evening. Same with the goats. They would get feed in the morning and feed in the afternoon and be grazing out in the pastures.
How much interaction would your dad have when it came to taking care of the horses or the animals or anything?
He didn't. I do not ever remember my dad feeding animals.
How about your mom?
She would do the chickens up by the house, occasionally come up and feed the chickens and all. But no, it was not on a regular basis.
About the goats?
I don't ever remember her feeding goats.
Did y'all have to bottle feed the goats at all or anything at times?
Oh yeah, we did. I mean, we had a lot of baby goats that were born. Not all goats are going to accept their babies. Some of them reject them. And, lo and behold, a lot of times, when a goat gives birth, they can pass away from it. It's just like humans. There's a lot of life and death on a farm. You're always having something born and you're always having something die.
And did you ever have to dispose of any animals, dead bodies, or anything like that?
A lot of chickens, they get sick very easily, or a fox will come and kill them. Ducks as well too. We've had some goats that pass away. They either get sick or, the first group of goats we had, we bought them from somebody that was, their parents, I believe, passed away or something. And we bought all the goats they had. That was our first goats.
Would you ever burn goats?
No.
Did you ever throw them on the burn pile?
No.
That's not something you would do?
No. I would bury them.
Where would you bury them on the property?
Majority of the time, the goat pen, because that was the softest, easiest ground to dig. Because the goat pen was, one of the previous owners built a very large retaining wall and filled it in. From what I was told, there was a lion in that. So.
I'm sorry?
A lion. I don't know if it was
like lion, tigers, and bear lion.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of lion, but the neighbors told us at some point there was a lion in that.
And that's where
cage.
the goats were at.
So that it turned out to be a perfect goat pen because it had a high fence, barbed wire coming out, had a metal.
Where is that? If I was looking at your house, where would that be?
It would have been right behind the barn. Backside of the barn along the property edge.
This is aerial 3. This is the house here. Where, I'll take the cursor of the hand.
You need to go up to the barn.
To the barn, all right?
To the barn, okay. Now go to the left. Now go straight up. Right there would have been the goat pen.
Okay, so behind the barn.
Yes.
Did the horses get out a lot?
Every once in a while they would.
Now, when I say get out, that's what, in this case, you're talking about the horses get out. We're going to be talking about that. What does that mean to you? If the horses got out, what would that mean?
They were not in a pasture, a soft pasture.
Were they running on Purcell Lane up the road and things like that?
Sometimes, yes. They would get actually off the property and be at a neighbor's house. I've had to go all the way to the very back end of Purcell to get a couple horses.
And when they would get out, what would you have to do to get them back in?
I would just grab a feed bucket, put some feed in it, and walk down and start shaking it, and they follow me like little puppy dogs.
How often would that happen?
It was rare,
Do you know
but
why?
it did happen.
Do you know how or why they would get out?
99% of the time, it was because somebody left the gate open.
And when it came to all the horses and things on the property, was there a certain pattern, like they would be put up at night, or were they just left out in the fields?
The horses, like I said earlier, it depend on weather, temperature, and everything like that. Goats were put up every single night. Chickens always went back into their chicken coop at night. So the door had to be closed on that. So the main animals I always had to be put up were the goats, the chickens, and obviously Luke and Leroy, the labs.
Would you do anything different around 4th of July when fireworks were coming out, or anything for the horses, or like on the 3rd? Did y'all do anything different on July 3rd for the horses?
We always left them out because, yeah, they will get scared from fireworks, but it's always safer to leave a horse out in a pasture than in a stall, because they would jump around and everything like that, and you don't want a horse getting hurt. So they would be left outside. So if they got scared, they had room to run. But if they were in a stall, they would, jump and hit their head or something on the stall walls.
Did you like the animals?
I loved them.
Was that something, a passion you enjoyed, or?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, the horses were like dogs to me. I mean, I took care of them all the time. Horses do have personalities just like dogs.
Do you miss them?
I do.
This is S. Farris 1. We have some photographs from the property. There were some drone photographs and things like that. But as we look at this photograph here, tell the jury what we're looking at. Now, this is taken at a different time after the July 5th, I believe. But just tell us, what are we looking at?
So we were looking at the bottom section of the house, the basement. This would have been below the big half circle deck. Those double doors right there would have gone right into the basement with the leather chairs and the TV, and behind that would have been the bar.
Are these sliding doors here?
Yes.
And then our French doors over here?
Yes.
Are these doors, the doors that slide, what is behind this?
There would have been the leather couch, a couple chairs, coffee table, and
It's where your dad would hang out?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where I would go. If I ate over there, that's where I would go down and sit and watch TV and eat dinner.
If I walked open these doors and walked in, would I run into the bar, the kitchen bar area?
Once you pass the couch?
Yeah, assume the couches are not obstructing my walk. If I walk in, when I walk before the bar, if I turn right, am I going to come down the hallway to your dad's office?
Yes, that's where the hallway was.
If I go and turn left, I go down the hallway to your dad's bedroom?
Yes.
If I walk a little bit further, I can go to left and go up the steps. Is
Yes.
that right? This is S. Farris 2. Looking, you see the officers, this is when it took some drone photos, but looking here, what I'm going to try to help orient is over in this area where the burn pile is. Can you tell the jury kind of where the burn pile is in relation to the kind of the corner of the house?
So from the corner of the house,
Let me do it this way. So this is S2, S3, and S4. This is the burn pile area looking back. Is this a view of it?
I would kind of say the burn pile's more over on this side.
Indicating to
So
the
if I was
right.
the cameraman, I feel like it would have been a little bit more to the right.
But in this area?
Yes.
Describe for the jury, if you would, if you're walking from the house going out towards the burn pile, are you going uphill or downhill?
You're going to be going downhill.
And is your property, is the house on the crown of the top of the hill for the most part?
Pretty much, yes.
Now, behind this, going back to 3, this tree line back here, did you have any trail cameras or anything on?
Yes, it was actually further south, further down the hill from the burn pile.
Going towards the pond, That way?
No, this was on the back side. There's the fence where your mouse is. That's about roughly where the fence line is, the property line.
Okay.
And there was a little trail that goes all the way down to the bottom corner.
So back in the woods.
So it was down that way. I had it set up on a tree pointing towards my neighbor's property.
All right. Look at the jury and tell them what you would do with that trail camera and what you did back there.
So my neighbor, Ray, he allowed me to deer hunt on his property right there on the hillside, because all the deer would come either running from our property to his, or they would come from that way. So I just had a better angle of, hunting deer.
How many deers did you harvest from that hunting spot?
Somewhere between, I want to say 6 or 7 deer.
And what would you hunt with?
I would use the first deer I took was with a 20 gauge slug, using a shotgun. And then the second deer I took, I borrowed a friend's AR-15 and took that deer. And then the rest were with a 12 gauge shotgun slug.
If you were, which direction did the trail camera point?
It pointed towards my neighbor's property.
All right. In relation to the burn pit, where's the trail camera in relation to that?
So if I'm leaned up against the tree that I have the trail camera on, the house would have been to that direction. So the trail cam would have been pointing to you. The house would have been to my left up the hill.
Is it in this area? Is it another? Do I need to use?
Yeah, it's nowhere.
All right. Which way with the mouse pointer should I go where the trail camera is?
Go right. So give or take some yardage, but it'll be, kind of right there pointing, north in this picture. So yes, that way.
So in this area on aerial 9 is where the trail camera would be?
Yes, somewhere in that vicinity.
And then the camera itself is pointing this direction. So left, straight, or right?
Straight.
Straight. Not pointing back to the burn pit?
No.
Not pointing back to the house?
No.
And did you put that trail camera up?
Yes, I did.
How did you look at the pictures and things on that?
At the time, I had like a little SD card thing that I'm able to connect to my cell phone, and it pulled up. I believe at the time I had an app that I was able to use to pull it up. Over the years, I was just able to, click on
Do you remember what brand it was or what trail camera was?
No, I do not remember.
Is it one of those where you could just sit in the house at night and you get a ding on your phone and tells you ding?
At that time, no.
You have that now?
I do have one like that now that sends it to my cell phone, but I haven't used it in years.
I want to ask you something about fires. Does your dad and your family like fires, burning fires? Did your grandfather or something burn fires?
Well, always growing up, my grandfather burned leaves, and I remember every Christmas after we all opened presents and all, my grandfather would collect up all the wrapping paper and go take it out on his burn pile and light it. And
was there a fire? Tell us about the first fire at the first house in Alpharetta back in I think around 2008.
Maybe, yeah. I really don't remember the date on it.
What happened? Just tell us what happened there.
So I remember that night. I remember waking up and fire trucks being out in front of the house, but it was the weekend prior. My dad burned some branches and stuff like that, and some old grass clippings or something like that. It was a little pile back there.
In the backyard or in the woods behind the garden?
In the woods behind the fence. So it was not right up on the house. He burned the stuff, and he, I guess, presumed that he had it put out. Well, it went an entire week. Nothing happened, and then I think it was like the following week or that weekend, I remember waking up and fire trucks being out there.
How big of a fire was it?
It was not no roaring fire. It was like a very, very low to the ground, like small brush fire.
How close were the houses in this neighborhood?
Between each house, there was at least, 50 to 80 feet maybe, roughly. They weren't like the cookie cutter style houses where you could put your hand on one house and on the other.
How did your mother feel about this fire?
Really don't remember.
Okay. Let's go to another fire your dad. So your dad said that one wasn't intentional, though, I guess, the fire.
No.
The second fire, I guess, wasn't intentional at the 2155 Purcell, the farm. He caught the house on fire there, too, didn't he?
The basement?
Yeah.
Yes.
In 2016, I think, is when that happened.
Yes. So
Tell the jury what happened with this fire that your dad did.
So it comes to find out. So my dad put a cigarette out in the ashtray, and I guess he dumped the ashtray a little too soon into the trash can. But I was up at the barn doing work. He left to go somewhere. I don't know where he went to. But I was up at the barn, and Melody calls me, and she goes, "Do you smell smoke?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "Well, do you see smoke out there?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, I'm smelling smoke." Well, I'll look over to the house. I see smoke pouring out of the basement, my dad's office door. I go, "Holy crap, there's something on fire over there." So I run over there, I open the door, and all I see is the trash can burning. So I grab it, throw it outside, grab the water hose.
This is in his office? Or
Yes, it was in the office. So, I put it out. I go and I check the walls. I didn't see anything burning. I put my hand on the wall, didn't feel hot. I looked at the closet that was in the office. That had all the controls for the home audio throughout the house. I opened that up, didn't see anything. So I went upstairs and made me a sandwich, and I came back down and was sitting in that room with the leather chairs and all, watching TV, eating lunch, and all of a sudden the fire alarm started going off again. I go back to the office and I open the closet door, and it's just a wall of fire. And I scream for her to call 911, and I run out, I grab the water hose, and I'm spraying. I'm punching the wall, trying to get holes in it so I can stick the hose in it. And then next thing I know, 2 deputies show up, and I look at them. They're like, "Sir, is this your house?" I'm like, "It's my parents' house." "Yep, yeah, wow. Do you have a baton or anything?" They're like, "No." And so I continue to, spray water and punch holes. And then the fire department showed up, and, the firefighter told me, he's like, "If it wasn't for you, their house would have burned down."
How bad of a damage was done to the house?
There was more smoke damage than actual fire damage. So the fire was mainly contained to that closet. So all the electronics burned up. It was an unfinished closet, so there was a lot of, wood.
Was your house like a smart house, had technology?
A good amount. It wasn't like what today's standards would be,
But that was destroyed or damaged?
All the components, the audio components, yes. We
did
had
you-
exposed rafters, so the fire could have spread down to the home theater if I did not put it out in time.
How did your mom react to that fire?
She was pissed.
Did she get on your dad?
I didn't see her get onto it, but, knowing her, yeah, she probably, chewed his ass out.
Was she concerned with your dad when it came to fires?
Yeah, we both were, because he would start a he would start a fire to burn branches and stuff like that. He would stay around it for a little while, but then walk off to go check emails or do something.
So no common sense when it came to fires.
No, yeah, man. There was a lot of times that I'm like, "Why are you burning right now with the winds blowing like this?" He wouldn't think about the
Did y'all leave him alone with fires?
I mean, I wouldn't stand there and hold his hand while he was burning stuff, no, but,
Did you have concerns with him in fires, though?
I mean, I always told him, it's like, don't burn a fire when it's, the winds are gusting up to, 15 miles per hour. And
Did he take hoses and things down there, or he just let
Not really, not over there. He would he would clear off around the fire so nothing was spread out, but I don't ever really remember him dragging a hose all the way down there.
Your mom and you kind of had a joke about you hope your dad was having a spell so he wouldn't tear anything up.
I mean,
Was your dad able to tear stuff up and y'all would have to fix it?
yeah, my dad would start projects and I would end up having to finish them. That would either because, you know, he had to go do something for work or, you know, he had to go back to work. He would.
Would you and your mother joke about him having spells, hoping that maybe he's having spells so he's not going to get into anything and y'all could have an easy day?
That, I mean, I don't remember really, but yeah, that could be, you know, a possibility that would have happened. I mean, when he started a project, he would do some pretty big projects.
Would you describe your parents' marriage as living married but living separate lives?
Towards the last, 2 years before his death, maybe, but for the longest time I remember, my mom and dad have always slept in different bedrooms because of my dad's sleep habits. He snored a lot. He had to sleep with a CPAP machine. I remember them, they officially kind of slept in different bedrooms after one night. My dad liked to, toss and turn a lot, and he ended up, flipping over, and his hand went flying over, and it hit her in the face and broke her tooth. So he wasn't a very, steady sleeper. He wasn't out cold. He talked in his sleep. He snored. He slept with a CPAP machine, kicked, jerked.
So they slept on separate floors?
Even at the old house in Hampton Hall, she would sleep down in the guest bedroom area. My dad would sleep in the master. And
so how many years were they having this sleep in separate places?
For quite a while.
10
like
years?
I said, after, that happened, they kind of stopped sleeping in the same bed.
10, 15 years? How long?
I would probably say that, yeah. It's before I want to say since I was kind of in high school.
Your dad had, how many CPAP machines did you know your dad have?
I only knew he only had one CPAP machine.
How many did you see?
He got new ones every so often, but
At the time of his death, how many CPAPs did you see that your father had?
he only had one.
Now, you and your dad, fair to say, like other fathers and sons, y'all have disagreements and argue about stuff at times?
Oh, yes.
And did your dad have disagreements with your mom about finances, especially after Ted Wiley and things like that?
Yes. When I came back from Iraq and about the time I got out of the Army, it seemed like everything was normal. They decided to put the house up for sale and go buy the farm. It seemed like a normal marriage. And then a few years after moving back into the farm, that's when she started disappearing again, and then the trouble started back.
Just this time I'm moving to evidence, S. Farris, number 6. It's a cell bright extraction between Scott and his dad. Scott, I want to turn your attention now to page 6. Number 18. It's on the screen there, if you can't see that.
Yes.
Now this is, you see number 18, I kind of, with your dad's numbers, your mom's numbers, everybody's numbers, I look at the last 4 numbers there, but 9032, your dad's cell phone number, do you see that?
Yes, I do.
So it's a message from him to you, your 2667. Can you tell us what the date that was?
Timestamp says 10/20/2017 at 9:13
a.m.?
a.m., yes.
All right, so it's an incoming, so it's from your dad to you, and this is, I think it's your extraction from your phone.
Mm-hmm.
What was the message? Can you read the body of the message he sent you? Read that into the record for us, please.
So you have my credit card, question mark?
And then you reply to that in number 19. What was your response?
Yes.
And then number 20, from your dad to you at October 20th, 2017 at 9:14 a.m. After you say you have it, what is his response to you?
Hang on to it as if your life depended on it.
Do you know why he would send you that message?
To me, that was, do not give this credit card to anybody.
Including your mom?
Yes.
Up to a point in your parents' marriage, did things, you said you thought everything was going all right at a time. But was there ever a time that did you ever see your mother get upset with your dad?
Quite a few times.
Would she outwardly manifest her anger or upsetness with her husband?
I mean, yeah, she would talk, she would talk trash about my dad to me, to my sisters, my brother. I mean, yeah.
I want to talk to you about an incident. So July 5th, 2019 is when you found your dad remains.
Said 2019?
2018.
Okay.
Go back, I think a couple, you tell us, was there an incident with seeing your mom break a plate?
Yes. I've tried my best to remember the exact date. I know it was prior to his death. It wasn't really, I don't want to say it was several months, but it was within a few weeks or so. We were working on the project between the house and the pond, the big stone walls and everything. And I remember I was either planting some plants or doing mulch or something. My dad was on the other side of the property, and she came out of my dad's office doors and screaming and cussing, and she threw a plate up against the wall of the house, and she screamed, "I can't wait till the day he fucking dies. I can't wait till the day I don't have to live with him anymore."
How close were you to this when she did?
I was within 10 yards.
How far was your dad away?
He was over 100 yards away.
Do you know if he heard it or saw it?
I know he didn't. He never said anything to me that he noticed it, and I don't remember him seeing him. So I knew he was up on the other side of the property.
So she walks out, and where does she throw the plate?
So if you walked out of those French doors, there was a wall right there, and right next to it would have been the hot tub. It was up against that wall, right?
How
right
bad
there.
was what kind of plate was it, and how bad was it broken?
Well, I mean, if only plate like that would have been, used was the, just the white kitchen plates. We had like two different sizes. We had a bigger set and then a smaller set, but they looked the same.
Did you confront her or say anything to her about that?
No, I don't remember saying anything to her about that.
Do you know what she was upset about, or?
If I remember right, him leaving the plate in the home theater room. And it was probably a plate that he probably had some kind of dessert, key lime pie on. So he would occasionally leave a Mountain Dew can or a plate in the home theater, and her being, she cleaned a lot. She liked to keep a clean house. So stuff like that.
So how mad was she when she did this?
Like I said, she came out yelling and cussing and threw it as hard as she could up against the wall, and it shattered into several pieces.
And you're certain she was talking about your dad?
Oh, yes.
She ever say anything like that any other time? That you witnessed?
That I witnessed? No, I don't really remember, no. She always, talk bad about my dad. It's like she always tried to brainwash us, like he was, such a horrible person. But no, other than that, I never heard her really ever saying, I can't wait for the day he's dead.
I'm going to ask you some questions. We're going to get into the third, fourth, and fifth. This is, just to refresh me, this is Riley One's calendar. It's July 2018. So third, fourth, and fifth, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up to those dates, do you know whether or not your mom, the defendant, was upset about a trip that Chris would use some money, your dad's money, to rent a condo or something for a beach trip?
I do remember, so they all planned to go down to the beach. I remember her making comments to me that, she wasn't happy about it.
Did she ever complain to you about Chris's spending or using money?
I took everything with a grain of salt from that she said about money.
Did she talk about money often?
What do you mean to talk about,
People using money or spending money or things like that.
She always tried to say, Chris is stealing money, or, your father's paying for this and that and this.
She'd tell you to get a job or anything like that?
Whenever she would get pissed off about something. But then, an hour later, she'd be like, oh, let's go and do this.
Did she ever say anything or do anything because around July 3rd, July 4th, with Chris and the money he was spending to go on the beach trip? Did you ever see her say or take any actions because of that, or confront your father or anybody else because of it?
I didn't see anything. I know she wasn't happy about it because, I don't really remember exactly why she was not happy about it. I remember her asking if I was going, and I remember my dad asking me if I wanted to go, and I said no because, somebody's got to stay here and take care of the animals.
Was your dad going to go?
Yes, he was planning on going.
How about your mom?
No, she was not. And the reason why I said I didn't want to go is I said to him, I was like, well, somebody's got to take care of the animals because I'm sure she's going to run off and go to Tennessee.
Up to this point, you said your mom would kind of just disappear or during the week. How often would that occur? If you took it week by week, how often was that happening?
For quite a period of time, it was just at least once a week she would disappear. It always seemed like a Tuesday or Wednesday or somewhere, in the middle of the week, it seemed like. And then a lot of times she would just send me a text saying, hey, I got to go up to Martha James. I got to take her to the doctor. And she wouldn't be back until the following week. Or
how consistent was this where she would go week per week?
For a while, for the last year and a half.
Up to the week of July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. When was the last time you remember her just leaving?
I mean, that probably would have been the week before, maybe. Or,
So it was up to that the week before?
oh, yeah. I mean, she was always had an excuse to go. Martha Jane had to go to this doctor.
And she would be gone. Would she just take day trips, or would it be other?
Sometimes it will be a day or two. Sometimes she would be gone, 4 or 5 days.
Around this time, did you ever see your mom with more than one cell phone?
Oh, yes.
Tell the jury about that, please.
I noticed that she had 2 cell phones when she'll be on the phone talking, and I walk into the house and her cell phone is laying on the counter. And then a lot of times I kept, I'll walk around the corner and she would grab her phone and tuck it into her waistband. So I knew she had 2 cell phones. And I told my dad she had 2 cell phones.
Did she use the phones out and open, or where was she using
No,
them?
she tried to hide it from me. I do know that.
Did you ever see her on it?
Well, like I said, that one time I saw her on the phone, but yet I walk in and her phone's laying on the kitchen island.
Did she ever? Where would she keep that other phone?
I have no clue.
Did you ever see her on her person or anywhere on her body?
Like I said, there was many occasions where I walk, into a room or around the corner, and she would move swiftly and tuck it into her pocket or waistband, depending on what she was wearing.
On July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I want to go through that on July. I think July 2nd, which is was that Monday. Did you go play golf that day?
On the 2nd, no.
Do you remember if you went and played golf and then with your friend and then went into a restaurant afterwards? Were you playing golf that week? It was one.
I played a lot of golf during that time because Hampton Hall, it was fairly cheap to play. There was only 20-something bucks, I believe it was, to play Twilight golf. So we played a lot of golf.
Let's go to July 3rd, that Tuesday. Did you work at the house that day with your mom?
Yes, so the morning of the July 3rd, it was either the day before or 2 days before, we went to Scottsdale Farms and bought some bushes to plant on the back side of the house, so the opposite side of the pond, some holly bushes.
So this is the day before July 4th. Did y'all go to Cherokee Ranch restaurant for lunch?
We always went there.
All right, who did you go with?
It would depend. If my dad was home, him and I would go. If he was at the office,
On
Melody.
July 3rd, did you go with your mom?
So on the morning of July 3rd, yeah, I went over there with, we drove separate because I was leaving from there to go up to the lake house with all my friends.
And did you see your dad at Cherokee Ranch?
Yes, I did.
But y'all weren't together?
No, he was already there when I came in, and he was sitting, as soon as you walked in the door, there was a booth, only a one-sided booth, so only either one person or two people could sit there, and that's where he sat. So, I ended up sitting at a different table.
Did he walk out without talking to y'all?
I ended up, he was still there when I left.
You don't know whether or not your dad walked out or paid and left before you and Melody?
If I remember right, no, he was still there when I left. Because I left, I drove up there separate from Melody. She was in her car, I was in the truck, and they both knew I was going up to the lake house.
And then what did y'all do after that?
So we ate, and I left, and I went to the lake house.
Where did she go?
I have no clue.
Whose lake house did you go to?
Nancy Pierce, it was her lake house, which is basically my second family. I've been friends with them for over 10 years now.
What time did you go up to the lake?
It would have been, around 12, 1 o'clock time frame, lunchtime.
And how long were you there at the lake on talking about July 3rd now?
I left there, and I was there until she called me and asked when I was coming home, and I said, "Well, I haven't really decided yet, but wow, what's going on?" And she said, "Well, the horses are out." I go, "What do you mean the horses are out?" She's like, "Your daddy left the gate open, and they're out." And I was like, "Well, I guess I'll, be on my way as soon as I can." And that was, I want to say, somewhere around 10 o'clock-ish.
I said around 10:52 p.m. Would that be about right?
It could have been around that time. I know it was dark out.
So did she call you or you called her?
She called me.
And she called and what? She was talking about the horses being out?
She called me and asked, "When are you going to be home?" And I said, "Well, I haven't, I haven't really decided, but wow, what's going on?"
And what did she say?
She said, "The horses are out. You need to come home and get them up."
All right, July 3rd, you're at the house with your mom working, go to lunch, your dad's at the restaurant, but you don't remember whether or not he left or anything like that.
I'm like 99% sure my dad was still sitting there.
But whenever y'all departed, he was in a separate car, you were in a separate car, and your mom was in a separate car?
Yes, that is correct.
And you went from the restaurant to the lake?
Yes, sir.
And you were there all night until you came home?
until she called me and said,
Go
"Come on."
anywhere else.
No, sir.
And
I mean, we went out on the lake on the boat and did that, but I went to the lake house.
about 10:52, you said you got a call from your mom about the horses. Did she ask you to come home or anything?
She asked, "When are you coming home?"
She asked
And-
when you're coming home.
Yes.
All right, that call's around 10:52 p.m. And you talked to law enforcement after all this happened, told them your timeline, things like that, right?
Yes.
And I think they were able to take photographs of your phone. Did you show your time calls and things to the law enforcement? Do you remember?
I remember I gave them my phone.
Okay. And then about 11:34 p.m. or so, did you get back to your house?
Yeah, it was from the lake house, which is up in Dawsonville, to the farm. That was about, anywhere from 35-minute to 45-minute drive.
And we got back at say around 11:34 p.m. Did you talk to your mom?
So I came in and, I turned up towards the barn. And once I came onto the property, I see the horses in the pasture. And I pull in and I pull up and I see the fire burning up behind the house where the burn pile always was. So I go, I pull up there to the barn. I try calling her, Melody, and she did not answer. So I went around and checked on all the other animals, make sure the chicken coop was, the door was shut, and, the goats were good and everything. And I went upstairs to my apartment, and then she finally called me back. And when she called me back, I said, "What the hell? I thought you said the horses were out." And she's like, "Well, I put them up. I was able to get them and put them up."
Do you remember saying anything to her about your dad deciding to burn the fire or anything like that?
Yeah, so, after, she told me she put them up, I said to her, "So I guess Daddy decided to burn that pile of wood, the burn pile?" And she was like, "Yeah." I go, "Well, somebody needs to pay attention to it throughout the night so it doesn't spread." And then I said, "I'm waking up very early in the morning to go play golf, and I'm going to come over and get the debit card to get some cash out." And
So
she's like,
if you talked to your mom around 11:34 p.m. on the phone, what time did you go to bed?
It was pretty shortly after that because I was pretty exhausted from being out in the sun all day.
All right, the next morning, July 4th, what time did you go and get the ATM card from your mom?
Very early in the morning. Because I want to say we either had a 7:30 or 8:30 tea time. So, the sun just rose by the time I got over there.
Did you go up to the house?
Yes, I drove over to the house.
Did you call your mom to come to the door? How'd you get her to the door?
So, the night before, I told her I was going to play golf, and in the morning I was going to come over and get the debit card. And she said, "Well, just call me and let me know when you come over." And I was like, "Okay."
Did you ask her to leave the doors open, unlocked or anything?
No, because the house wasn't ever really locked up.
If she said anything about she was going to lock the doors or not lock the doors?
I do not remember anything of that.
Fair enough. When you do you know if it was about 6:15 or so when you went to go get the ATM?
Yes, it was like I said, very early in the morning. So it had to been around that time. And I sent, I called her as I'm getting in the truck and said, "Hey, I'm coming over." And she met me at the front door and handed me the debit card. And
Did you go inside?
No, I never went inside.
Did you go get something out of the refrigerator, a drink or anything?
No, I literally walked.
You didn't go get a power drink or energy drink or anything like that?
No, I did not.
Did she let you in?
I never went into the house. She literally met me at the front door and handed me the debit card.
Did you run down the road, get some cash, and come back?
Yeah, I ran down to, right there at Free Home, Publix. There's a Wells Fargo bank right there. So I grabbed.
If your tea time was around 7 or 7:30, would that be fair to say?
Yes, and like I said earlier, it was either 7:30 or 8:30 tea time.
And who were you playing golf with?
I was playing with my friends Ted and Philip.
Would y'all do this on the 4th of July? Is this something y'all would do?
We try to make it a tradition, but yes, this would have been our second 4th of July round of golf.
And after you played golf, did you go somewhere?
We left from the golf course and went back to the lake house.
And how long were you at the lake?
So we finished golf and then we went there, and we only went out on the boat only for a few hours. I know we were back. Did
you go to a pool party afterwards?
So we got back and Ted and I went to our friend's apartment complex. She lived in Cumming, and we went to the pool party that she was having there. And I stayed there not long. I'd probably say like a couple hours.
And about what time did you go home that night?
I was home before it got dark. So it was...
Did you go home to feed the animals?
Yes.
All right. So on July 4th, start off, get the ATM money, go play golf, go to the lake, pool, and then you go home around whatever time before dark. You remember what time that would have been?
That, like I said, it probably would have been 6, 7 o'clock roughly. It was still daylight outside. And that time of the year, the sun would have gone down about 9-ish.
When you got home, did you have a conversation with your mom about the goats being out or anything?
So when I get home, I see all the goats out in the front pasture, or the pond pasture is what we called it. I get them, I grab their feed and I call them and they all come running. I take care of everybody. Then I ride over to the house. By this time it's already dark out. I ride over to the house and, I walk in and I go back to the master bedroom and Melody's laying in bed with the dogs. And I talk to her and I'm like, what the hell is it? Why are the goats out? And she's like, well, your daddy let them out. I was like, okay, well, why didn't...
That's what she said?
Yeah. She said, your daddy let them out. I was like, okay, well, why didn't y'all put them back up? I was like, you're going to have to start doing this because I'm going to, start my new career at some point. So you're going to have to learn how to take care of these animals. And then I proceeded to, I turned around and, we talked about something else, I can't remember, but I do remember her telling her that. And I turned right around and went right back out and got in my truck and went back up to my apartment.
All right. On July 3rd, did you see the fire burning?
Yes, I did. When I came home that night, when I pulled up to the barn, I could see off behind the house that the fire was burning.
On July 4th, did you see the fire burning?
I do not remember it burning.
Judge, may we approach real quickly?